And we are live. This is Bill Brock, and we're going to try this one more time today. I had a podcast earlier this morning, but we had some technical difficulties. I'm going to blame it on the aliens. That's why I brought Eric Mitchell on, because he is the guy who knows everything about aliens and, well, really his experience with, the extraterrestrial or whatever he experienced. I don't really know all of your story, Eric, but man, I'm excited to have you on and have you tell me about it. I think it's pretty cool.
Bill, I don't know my whole story. I just, that's like saying you remember what you had for breakfast 6 Tuesdays ago. Some people, they actually, well, first and foremost, I didn't believe in this subject. I mean, at all. I thought people were absolutely insane that talked about UFOs and little green men. Look at that. See that smile? Everybody gets that half cracked smile when they talk like that. But we're socially engineered. We're socially conditioned not to accept this kind of thing. And so for me, at the age of 34 years old, it smacked me dead in the face. And I mean, I fought it. I fought it back. I didn't want it to be real. I thought of every excuse. I thought of every way out of it, and it just got to the point where I couldn't anymore. So there are people that are prone to believe in these things, and good job, because this is a real subject, and
it is
not just for myself, but there's literally millions of people all over the world that are too shy to talk about it, too scared. They get self-policed with this word called crazy, which is not a diagnosis. And so it's just over time, you get to learn that there's so many out there and none of them are talking. And you look around and go, this is ridiculous. It's like being a dysfunctional family with that elephant in the corner of the room that everybody ignores. But you could definitely rest assured that there's people in our government that are well aware, and they kind of keep things under wraps.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to learn about a little bit about your background and who you are. I'd like to know where you're from and kind of a little bit about you growing up. And did you have any kind of weird stuff happen to you when you were a kid? I just kind of want to know a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, as a kid, you grow up watching your parents for for everything. We take on so much of their traits and all that stuff, and that's what they're there for. To guide us and teach us. And my parents, when it came to the paranormal, hell no, they would explain anything away. But I did have a couple of instances of missing time. And, as time goes on, it kind of fades off into the background, but it always sits in the back of your mind, like, what exactly happened? Did I black out or whatever? But no, I was born in East Providence, Rhode Island, on my birthday. Did you know that?
I had no idea you were born on your birthday. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It gets deeper too. But at the age of 5 years old, my mother had divorced my father and married this strange military man, and he became our stepfather. We moved to a town that he liked in Hector, Arkansas, and basically, we moved around quite a bit. He was involved with some shady military stuff, and eventually he was murdered.
Wow.
I was 9 years old, and after that, we still continued to move. We moved to California, several places in California, and back to Arkansas, several different places in Arkansas. But I'd say 90% of my life, Arkansas, except here recently. I think I've lived in 5 different states in a short period of time. I have no idea where my jacket is, but it's in one of said 5 states. I do know that. And you're the type of guy, you're a go-getter, you're a doer, so you completely understand. Once you're absorbed in a purpose in life, there's always something. You're always out doing something. Tonight, I'm actually having a Zoom meeting with at least 50 people that have had experiences with UFOs. And this was not me trying my rear end off to get a bunch of people jumping on several different social medias and calling the horn. This is leisurely, like a few people heard I was going to do it. A friend of mine is operating Zoom because I am too stupid to operate a computer. So he was nice enough to facilitate the meeting for me. And yeah, at least 50 people, and it could be even more than that. So
Wow. I want to jump on there, man. You
yeah,
send me the link. I want to at least hear what these folks had to say. To me, it's just
yeah,
intriguing. I believe in UFOs. I have I don't want to say doubts because I don't have doubts in people's stories because I believe people, but I
yeah,
have a hard time understanding why no offense, but why you would be picked or why Travis Walton would be picked or like any of these people that
yeah.
have abduction stories. Like what is it about them? You
You
know what I
know,
mean?
yeah, yeah. And the common consensus. I'm actually working as a consultant right now for Harvard University. They're opening up a study a lot like Stanford to study people like me. I don't know if you're aware of what Stanford's been doing with Dr. Gary Nolan, but they're putting experiencers under an MRI. What we're finding is anomalous brain activity, and it's only in said experiencers. There's a control group of like 70 people that have had no experiences whatsoever, and that anomalous brain function isn't there. So we're really wondering right now, is it within the DNA? Because it always seems to follow family lines. It may not be your mother, but surprise, your grandfather talked about it all the time. So it's pretty intriguing to see the real science down there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
it's tough to believe, this kind of thing. It really is. It was hard for me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I want you to real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man, but I think it's
sure.
really important for us right now to talk about like who you are as far as like what your experience was, because we're about ready to dive into some really interesting stuff as far as what you've experienced and how it's changed your life. So I really want you to give people out there a quick overview, just a quick overview of what kind of happened to you, and then we'll get right into it and talk about it in detail.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, my wife at the time, I got a divorce. She was having an affair. She had some personal problems that I couldn't quite fix for her. She had to do it herself. So I ended up adopting her three children and our child and moving away and raising them on my own. And anybody in the world can say, hey, that's kind of tough. So there was a night where, and when you're a single parent, you either hide in the bathroom or you hide in your car. and so I decided I was having a hard time. I was behind in rent. I had a crappy job because I couldn't get what I wanted because, there's soccer practice, there's flutes and, all this extracurricular. You don't want, just because you're missing mom, you don't want to leave, their life out. So I worked a crappy job, stayed behind on my bills to make sure they had some kind of childhood. And I was frustrated. I was, single parent. So I laid on the hood of my car and I was just kind of praying. And I had this kind of out of body experience. It was very shocking to me. I prayed my whole life. I've always believed in God. I believe in God a hell of a lot more now than I used to. And so I jumped off the hood of my car and I ran inside. It scared the hell out of me, Bill. Um, I'm still at loss for words for that moment. But I ran inside. I've never done drugs. I have smoked pot. I consider my hometown Hot Springs, Arkansas, same place as Bill Clinton, and I will admit I inhaled. And you know what? He should too. He should.
You should.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've never done drugs. I wasn't intoxicated or anything like that, and it freaked me out. And I woke up the next morning around 4 a.m. and I'm standing outside of my apartment. I have no idea how I got there, and I'm standing in front of this 40-foot in diameter orange sphere. It looks like the sun. You know how the sun just kind of ripples on the surface, and it's not way up in the sky. This thing's above my street. And my first thought, well, first and foremost, what the hell am I doing outside? Did I sleepwalk? And then it was, what the hell is that? And my first thought was like blown transformer, and it was immediately gone from my mind because there's no way that could have been a blown transformer. And it didn't bob or weave or anything like that. It was very much stationary. I mean, it was just right there. And as big and as bright as it was, everything around it wasn't illuminated. And to your mind, that doesn't make sense. Light does not do that. Since then I've talked to scientists that are working on some things, and they're like, oh yes, you're looking at the real thing. But I went inside, I turned on the news to see if there was anything weird going on. Brewed some coffee. I kept my door open so I can kind of lean on the couch and look out, and it's still there. You almost want to walk up to something like that out of curiosity. But there's two things now. There's fear and curiosity at the same time. So I'm keeping my distance, but I still want to see it. Is it going to move? Is it, thinking in your mind, okay, I'm going to notice that this is somehow trick of the eye, that light is bouncing off of this and doing that. All I got to do is wait for the sunrise, and I can laugh at myself. And the sun came up. I kind of leaned over to look, and it was gone. So that really bothered me. I'm kind of all day at work, being quiet, kept to myself, thinking really hard. And about halfway through that day, I remember reading like a science magazine where they talked about ball lightning. And I went, that's it. My world was okay after that. I was so cool with that. And about 9:30 that night, I stepped out for a smoke. We just did Pixar films with the kids, did the homework, dinner, everything's done. Smoke break. I go out, and here's this thing, it's just slowly coming on. I'm trying to get in the camera here, but it turns on like that and then completely slowly blacks out. And I went, what? Looking up at it, and it starts to move very slowly, maybe 2 miles an hour, while it comes on and comes off. And it's just, you can't be that shocked. You can't be that smacked in the face, because it's almost like God himself had just made something up to mess with you. It's like, right. What in the hell is that? Military application? No, it couldn't be. There's no noise. There's no indication of sound, propulsion, anything. It's just completely silent. So it keeps blinking this on and off thing as it circles all the way around my street, over my apartment, 1-story apartment, and I'm having to turn my body as I'm watching it go right above my door. It's a 1-story apartment. So this thing is maybe 15 feet in front of my face, flashes twice really fast that time, and took off as fast as a bullet. No sound, no 738 mile an hour boom, that you would think that you would hear. It's almost like it wasn't even there, So, Bill, my knees were locked up.
I bet.
My hands were shaking. I couldn't move. And it wasn't an exterior thing. It was just overwhelming, unknown, untapped fear that just rushed over my body. It's like walking through the woods and realize you're 5 feet away from a bear and you didn't know it. It's like, oh, crap. Except this is even worse because it's an unknown whatever this is. And I sure as hell wasn't crazy enough to think it was a UFO. I mean, in my mind, a UFO is like a silver disc, and woo,
Right.
1950s film or something. But I had no idea what it was at the time. The next day, my neighbor Dan, he lived right across from me. Great friend. He was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for I think 2 terms, 8 years, and we were working on my car. It ended up being the water pump, which is really expensive, and I was having a hard time with that. And he was going to go in and eat, and I actually stepped back on my shoelace and untied my shoe while he was going inside. So I knelt down, started tying my shoe, and I felt it was like a slight vibration on the top of my head. And before I even realized it, it's like someone turned the knob up and I hit the ground. God, it's like, if you're standing in front of a rock and roll speaker at a conference,
yeah,
and
you just feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that, but times a million. And I mean, I hit the ground.
So do you think this vibration or whatever it was that you were hearing or feeling was coming from the spaceship?
I didn't think that at first. The only thing I could push through my mind at the time was, oh my God, I'm being killed. It was so intense that I noticed my throat opened 3 times in a row. And that's how I realized I was throwing up. I mean, that's the only indication that told me I was throwing up. You could have kicked me like a football, and I would have noticed that I was rolling, but I wouldn't have felt the kick. I was engulfed in this. I didn't think it was this object. I didn't know what it was. I was so confused. So I pushed myself up off the ground and looked up at where this was coming from, because I can feel it coming down on me. It's almost like a giant magnet was held over me, because I felt my body kind of scooting away from it as it moved above me. I don't know. You ever play with magnets and kind of make it go back and forth? That's how my body felt. And so I pushed myself up and I looked up at it, and it was right above me. And it flashed twice again and took off. And man, I laid there for about 20 minutes. My nose was bleeding. My left ear was bleeding. And it's really hard, Bill, to explain certain reasonings when things like this happen. But I literally laid there for 20 minutes, fearful of the sky above me, but I also didn't want to turn my back to anything. I was that scared. So I literally laid there in fear because I didn't want to move. Now, you mentioned Travis Walton earlier. We actually roommated up there in Maine for about 6-8 months. And
I bet that was crazy, man. That guy,
Yeah.
he definitely had an experience that has rocked him to his core. There's no doubt.
Yeah, to this day. I mean, poor Audrey, you know, she's in the living room. He's in the back bedroom with his night terrors, and I'm in the other bedroom on the other side with my night terrors. And she's like, "The hell with it, I'm having a drink," you know. But yeah, we had some heart to hearts. He's a great guy. And I told him, I sat next to him one day, and I said, "Did I ever tell you that I have 2 holes in my skull, one on each side of my parietal suture?" And Travis goes, "No, you didn't." He said, "Can I see?" And I was like, "Yeah." And this is where Audrey was sitting there just smiling, because she knew. So he reaches above my head and he's feeling these holes in my skull. And he was like, "You should feel mine." And I went, "What?" He has 1 hole in that area, and it's not a soft spot. It's a completely different area. It's, you know, above the parietal suture. And so I've got my finger in his head hole, and he's got 2 fingers in my head holes, and Audrey's just loving it, you know. She's so when you think about 2 separate guys being knocked down by whatever this is, I believe it's a certain spectrum of the electromagnetic field. If you know, I've talked to some of the smartest scientists you can get your hands on, people that have worked with the CIA, and talking about all the science, it really goes with what they're thinking and some of the stuff that they're working on. But I had almost immediate loss of vision. These are reading glasses. I see close up and far away with them at the same time. And it happened that day. And the scientists tell me that, you know, the electromagnetic push and pull on my eyes at the same time created that situation. So even if I went to go see an optometrist, this is what I'd be wearing to see 2020, which is amazing. You know, once you put science to actuation, you know, of what happened.
Right. So I have a question. I guess there's 2 questions really. So since you did spend a lot of time with Travis Walton, did you find any similarities between what you had experienced and what Travis had experienced?
Yeah. Physically, I don't remember abduction, but also physically, my body does. You know, I've gotten marks and scars like you wouldn't believe. You know, just I still have trouble with it. But yeah, I mean, the feeling of getting knocked down, Travis went completely out. So he had a couple of seconds of holy crap and he went out, you know, woke up 5 days later. For me, it was, I was awake. I stayed awake, and I don't think I was taken at that point in time, but I went into physiological, you know, where your brain is a little bit different, anomalous brain function, like what we're talking about in several different universities. And surprisingly enough, Travis told me that he went to the doctor under a false name. That way the media didn't crowd him. And they found anomalous brain function with Travis. So,
oh, wow.
So these effects are real. You know, you may not believe that a UFO came around, but you can believe in MRI. You can believe these kinds of studies, and it's like, holy crap. The problem with universities is, do they want to lose their reputation by talking about it? And
right.
so
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The second question, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure that I get all my questions in during this. So you were talking about your vision and how your vision was changed from that day. I don't think Travis wears glasses, does he?
No.
And no, so he didn't have that same reaction, right?
No, he wasn't as close to the craft as I was, and he wasn't under that influence for that long period of time that I was as well. His was like instantaneous boom, where mine was more or less, 15 seconds. So that makes a difference when you're dealing with electromagnetic things. If you get around a highly powerful magnet, it really depends on how long you're around it, that it affects you, physically. And these sciences were explained to me. And once it really clicked in my head, I went, holy crap. It all of a sudden went from this unknown thing, that'll bug me my whole life, to, oh, that's how it works, and man, I felt so much better putting physics down, instead of having this euphoric idea of woo, 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 once you understand the physics, you feel so much better, about what goes on. But yeah, I mean, Travis, he also has that internal thing. A lot of people love the entertainment of a UFO story or something like that. But what happens on the inside of you, the PTSD, the separation from society, the feeling that you're crazy, even though there's plenty of witnesses, there's plenty of pictures, the Pentagon knew about it. You still feel detached from the rest of the world because you have this insight that can only be obtained through something like that. A believer, man, good job, because you're doing a lot better than I used to. But a knower is a million miles away from a believer. It's not even a close tie. So yeah, it's a very difficult life after that. And I mean, you can have one experience like Travis Walton, and it will bug you for the rest of your life. I mean, we hung out when he was 42 years in, and still messes with him. It messes with me. I'm only 7 years in. And last time I talked to Travis, he goes, yeah, it was about 7 years before I started healing up and I was able to really talk about things. So yeah, very difficult.
Yeah. All right. So I want to go back and talk about some parts of your story that I don't know. I just have questions about, man. So when you kind of lost time, do you feel during that lost time is when you were taken away?
I believe so. There's been, things that happen during sleep time, which, I mean, I'm a show me kind of guy. I hate speculation. It's useful in some situations, but I'm a show me kind of guy. But, when you wake up with literally hundreds of holes from shoulder cuff to elbow, they're deep enough to put your pinky in. The skin is so dehydrated that you're not bleeding. And a doctor goes, what the hell is this? How did you get so dehydrated just in that area? What do you do? Can you just say that there's maybe a bullet ant in your bed that night? I mean,
right.
What kind of insect would have caused this, And so doctors don't know,
Right.
And
do you have any photos of that? Do you have any photos of the marks that were left on your body?
Yeah. Fortunately, I got a hold of a Kentucky State MUFON director, and he collected all my photos and videos and stuff like that. And we're working on a documentary film right now, putting all that information out. But yeah, there's photos of the scoops. There's photos of, there's one morning I woke up with a laser incision from nipple all the way to navel. And I didn't notice it until I jumped in the shower. The water hit my stomach. It burned like hell. And I looked down, and every doctor I show it to, they say, well, yeah, that's a laser incision, but why is it almost 2 feet long? I've never had surgery. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember little green men poking and prodding at me. I do remember a few times waking up and thinking, why am I not in my bed? And then I'll just go right back out. But yeah, I really don't have a whole lot of memories with that situation. It's just scars. And, these things are deep enough. These scoop marks are way deep enough for scars, So, yeah, they'll show up. I mean, maybe this lighting and stuff like that, they won't be too prominent, but, up close and personal, you can definitely see them.
Yeah. I don't need to see, like, I believe you, man. Like, I believe everything you're saying. So there was never a point where you remembered what had taken you. You don't remember any creatures. You don't remember like the inside of the ship. You don't remember anything like that.
Well, I do from regression.
Okay.
I've had hypnotic regression, and I've literally had some type of, it's really hard to explain, but some kind of intuitive conversation where there's just so much more intelligent than what we are. I think about you having a 500 to 1,000 IQ, and
I do. I don't have to imagine, man. I got that.
Yeah, there you go. And your basal ganglia and your cauda putamen are on fire. Like psychic ability, empathic ability, to the point where it's ridiculous, and it's accepted in your culture, of course. Then imagine a conversation with something like that, and it's we have 26 letters and a billion neurons. There's no way to express that. I mean, but yeah, I was really scared. I cried. I'm a grown man. I actually cried. And I didn't pull any memory of them taking samples from me and stuff like that. But I did at least get a little bit where I actually conversed with these things. And I asked them, I said, why me? And they said, because you're you. And I asked them who they were, and they said family. So that is just way open-ended. That's no answers for me at all. And it's, I know your subconscious can't lie, and hypnosis is really good for that. But I really hated that tape, listening to that, knowing it came out of my brain in an area that doesn't know how to lie. So I don't like that part about my life. I don't want that part to be true, but you can listen to the audio tape and there it is, So when people tell you the truth sucks, it does. It really
I would love to listen to that audio tape. The other day I had a professor from Bates College. You probably heard of Bates, man. You lived in Maine. And Stephanie Kelly Romano had talked about her extensive research in hypnosis and really kind of like how memories are stored in the mind, and how like even in hypnosis, people are able to almost implant memories as they have you under hypnosis. So the hypnotist can be like, well, what did the alien look like? Well, that has already put the thought of an alien in your mind, and you're already thinking, little green men. Yeah. So when you went through your hypnosis, were they kind of dropping hints like that as?
Yeah, he was a little bit leading. A little bit leading. And, it kind of upset me because we talked about it before I went under. And we probably had about 15 coffee dates just to get me comfortable enough with this guy to do it. And I was upset. I talked to him about it. I said, that was a little bit leading. And he said, yeah, Eric, but you already know. Your mind's already there. We just have to ask it questions. So we met on the 50-yard line with that. And, but it's, I've picked another doctor out that does this, and I don't want to, but I want to, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, man. I can't imagine what it must feel like, because you have to want to know the truth. You have to be like, man, I want to know what happened to me. Like, and the only real way you can do that is tap into memories that you can't tap into. And the only way we know how to do that is hypnosis. The next time around, I guess you're using a different doctor, and are you going to be sure that this doctor doesn't drop hints essentially?
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's people out there that are telling the truth and they fail a lie detector test just because the questions are formulated, a certain way. So, that could be dangerous too. I mean, I'm sure the public wants to know the truth. I want to know the truth. But I'm in a situation where I have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
Because if I misinform myself and then tell people in the public about it, I could be making a very big mistake against all integrity, and that's just irresponsible. And you see it everywhere in ufology and stuff like that. So for me, my personal pursuit about the truth about this whole thing has had a lot of discernment involved, and man, a lot of digging. I've been all over the place. Seems like that's all I do. But at 5 o'clock this morning, I was up talking to a guy that has not spoken about this for 12 years. And he needed to get it off his chest. He needed to talk to somebody. And so 5 a.m. we're on the phone with each other. It's a constant thing.
Right. So this guy right here, Ken Owens, he's a buddy of mine, and he was in the little documentary I did not long ago. You might even know him. I'd say you guys have probably bumped into each other. He believes that. Yeah, I love Ken. He's a great dude. Sometimes it will block your memory in the regression. So he seems to feel like during your regression, they have the ability to still. Well, actually, I bet what he's saying is like they did that before, and then you're not able to bring those memories back. I think that's what he's trying to say. Do you think that's possible? Maybe they've suppressed those memories so far that you're never going to bring them back?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open up a can of worms, especially since Ken is listening. There is a spectrum within the electromagnetic field. It's in the blue spectrum, a tiny slice. You could miss it if you're a scientist. It's been accidentally recorded all the way up till 1952. And then electrogravitics went black in 1952 and was locked up at Lockheed Martin. The reason being is this accidental experiment that pops up every now and again produces neurons by rotation of magnets. You can do it, it's a very particular certain way, but it produces neurokinetic activity. This certain type of electricity that goes on inside your brain can be produced outside your brain. That is dangerous. If you think about war application, if you think about so many things that it can do. Now, I have talked to a scientist that works on these rotating magnets and produces this type of energy. And I've seen him do it. It's amazing. And so when you see this electromagnetic field around a craft, this thing is conscious. A lot of people will go, I just thought to look up and it was there. No, you knew it was there, but it was subconscious. So these things actually have the ability and the technology to manipulate your neurons. And that is where you get your screen memories. It's where you get your downloads. It's how communication at a distance works. And of course, we're finding that out with MRIs and experiencers and stuff like that. So it's fascinating science, but scary at the same time.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about how I came in contact with you a few years ago. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. But at one point, I wanted to do a documentary about your story because I find it is absolutely just fascinating. But after talking to you, man, it is so in depth that it would take me 10 years to actually be able to do it right. And so one of the things that I found out while I was researching you and your story is you have been experimented on by scientists. You have also somehow acquired the ability to, I don't even know what it's called, man, but like if you can like tap microphones, like I don't know what you're doing, but you can make little tappy sounds, in a microphone that's on the other side of the room. And you're also able to change EMF fields. Am I right on all this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's fascinating. What's normal to you may not be normal to everybody else. So, but in my life, it's normal. But yeah, that anomalous brain activity that I did take on after being hit by that craft, it caused a lot of things. And so I've had a lot of people look at it. I think the next stop I'm going to take is Stanford University and go ahead and do their study. I'm consulting for the Harvard University. So when I do the Stanford one, I'm going to hop over to the Harvard one. That way their books are in check, and they can piggyback off each other's stuff. One thing that they are finding with the brain of an experiencer is it's common for 30 hertz to be admitted through the brain. We don't know where it's coming from. The brain doesn't have a mechanism to create sound, but here it is, and it's below hearing range, so they don't know they're doing it. It's just constant. There was a few people that found there was 50 hertz coming out of a few subjects. One guy that meditates all the time, they found 100 hertz. That's mind-blowing. My investigator sent me to a Nashville recording studio, okay, with a shirt microphone. Just put it on my forehead there, and I put out 1,590 hertz at sheer will, doing it on purpose. Now, that's within the hearing range for sure. And of course, they had the 72. I know it sounds nuts, but it's so normal to me. It's like taking a piss. But sometimes I'll put my earphones in and just add to the music, and it's literally audible. As a matter of fact, this computer here has the software where I can actually play with it and watch the squiggles go up and down.
So I want to say something really quick about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else can hear what I'm hearing because I have some really nice headphones on. They're like noise canceling and all that kind of good stuff. But I hear an audible horn right now. And I've heard it the whole time we've been interviewing. And it's like this hum, like a really strange hum. And it almost sounds like a vacuum cleaner running. I don't have a vacuum cleaner running here in the house, but I hear it. And I kind of want to get a meter on this thing and see what hertz level I'm looking at, because it's definitely there. And it makes me wonder, are you making this happen?
No. It's when I do it, it's like moving a finger or something like that. As a matter of fact, I had more control over the sound fluctuation than I have in my own voice. There's a thing we put up on YouTube. This guy from MUFON in Nevada, he was so intrigued by it. So we played around on it. He pulled out his laptop. He was happy. He was picking up the frequencies, and he had to jump up, and he's like, "Wow, you got to be kidding me!" I'm like, "No, it's normal." But in the beginning, I thought I had some sort of brain tumor or something like that. But it turns out that scientists do postulate that I'm actually manipulating the synapses in my brain to rush in one area, creating the sound itself. It's possible. I don't know for sure yet. I want science to nail it to the wall and tell me, what's going on. But thankfully, it's not a brain tumor. It's not schizophrenic. It's not tinnitus or tinnitus or anything like that. All that stuff's been ruled out. And I just can't wait to find out what it is,
Right. So I think you told me that you had been to MIT. Am I right?
Yeah.
So what did they do with you there, and what did they find out?
Well, that's what they were postulating, is that I was able to manipulate the synopsis and all that stuff. Stanford, I think, is going to be great with answers because they have really good MRIs that could, Harvard's got the best, but Stanford's great, just to be able to take that definitive proof, know what it is, is it my basal ganglia? Is it my caudate putamen? Is it my third eye? What is it that's creating this? And why did these unknown people do this to me? Right. At least leave a card going, "Hey, sorry, I knocked the crap out of you, but we're just having fun." I mean, it'd be really nice,
Yeah.
But
so what other things do you have going on that like I wouldn't have going on? You know what I mean? Like what? Yeah. So what other kind of powers, I guess you could call them? I don't know what to call them, guy. I just don't. But what other things that you have going on?
Well, in the beginning, I did have moments of telekinesis, not controlled like you see in the movies. Like ooh, I can do this with my hands. It's more like reaching for something and it'll move inadvertently.
Right.
Or getting really upset and a window just breaks. Things like that. Absolutely nothing useful. But we were able to record and take pictures at certain times where things were really weird. I was actually washing down my kitchen table one day, and my son's messing with me taking pictures, and I don't like my picture being taken. So he thought it was funny as hell. So I'm scrubbing this thing down, and I raised my hand up off the rag. It's still wet rag, it's got Windex on it and everything like that. And this thing was levitating below my hand and circulating. And it just, you feel this energy. You feel a part of everything all at once. It's like a boom, it's a singularity, and all of a sudden you're in that. And once you snap out of it, you can't even touch it with the tip of your tongue anymore. It's like, what the hell just happened? And it is energy. It's that's what consciousness is. That's what makes up existence itself. And yeah, I was just amazed by it and scared that it was happening to me. I'd rather it happen to Bob or Fred or Bill. But yeah, there's a few pictures of instances like that. But most you really can't catch because you're not standing there armed with a camera 24/7. So yeah, telekinesis. Almost every experiencer that I've worked with has a heightened sense of empathy, sporadic psychic moments or full-time psychic moments, depending on the person. And yeah, I mean, it's a normal thing for experiencers to go through that. And I honestly think it may have something to do with the person's DNA line, or it could have something to do with coming in contact with this type of technology. Either way, it does something to the brain, and some have it a little bit and some have it a lot.
Yeah. So everybody is also commenting on the humming sound. I'm just going to pretend it's just you. Actually, I think it might be the fan on your computer. If I had to
you know what? It could be.
If I had to guess something, that's what I would guess. But yeah. So hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully everybody can
yeah.
But yeah, that's my, because it fluctuates. It kind of goes up and down. So my guess is just a fan. But I was really hoping there for a minute it was you.
No. I'd need like a shirt mic or something like that to cancel out any outside noise, and just put it on my head and do that. So we'll try that sometime. Yeah, I've got to learn the Microsoft software that I have. I'm terrible with electronics, and if I get around them too much, they break anyway. So I want to be able to do that. I did. I was talking about that guy in Vegas playing around. We did a little video and we put it up on YouTube, and I think it's just Eric Mitchell showing audio bursts with brain, and it's not going to have the audio. What we wanted to show was the level of control going across the screen. So I just decided to do bursts of 4. And if you watch the video, you're going to see equal spacing beyond belief, almost like a computer did it, but it's actually me doing it with my brain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way across several times. And I did it several times to show that I can repeat that over and over and over again. But I could actually do 5 different sounds at the same time in different pitches if I wanted to show off. And I did that at a Las Vegas talk. Las Vegas out of all places. And I turned around after I was done with the microphone. Actually, I had my colleague hold it to my head. That way, here's my hands. I'm not doing any tricks. That's the common thing. People are like, oh, he's doing this or that. Wait till I meet you in person. I'll do it to your face. So be careful what you say in comments, because we might meet someday. And,
right.
But anyway, we had this on a big screen where everybody can see it. People paid tickets to come in and all that stuff. So I'm doing all this stuff and I'm watching the screen because I want to see it. I don't get to play around as much, so I want to see what everybody else is seeing too. And I'm looking up and I'm having a good time. And all of a sudden I turn around to look at the crowd and everybody's looking at me like a green bug. I expected clapping or something like that. But literally, they're all just like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? So,
yeah. So I was able, check this out. I was able to bring up this. So do you remember this? I believe this was Toby Hartford, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's Toby. And actually, Travis Walton is off to my left-hand side in that video.
Yeah, I'm going to take a second. I don't know if I'll get, it's not monetized. I'm not getting any money for what I'm doing, so I should be okay to play this. But I'm going to play this, and I'm hoping that people at home will be able to hear what you did, because this is the video that really made me a believer, guy. Like I think that you have some ability to manipulate sound or something. And this is the video that really, made me realize that that's true. So let's go ahead and start this.
I don't think I've ever seen that. Is this where I set off the EMF meter?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, your brain's an electromagnetic field creator, and
Eric claims to be able to generate sound waves, or some sort of energy being used by his mind. He has the ability to sense making contact with unidentified objects. Man, it's so dramatic.
Oh, I hate being the crazy guy. The sad thing is during the investigation, I've had to get full psychological evaluations, and I'm more sane than most people.
Yeah. So here's Toby. He's got an EMF meter literally sticking on your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if people at home can see, but it's working.
Yeah. What I felt is like, when you rub a balloon on your hair, you could feel the static electricity.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I felt. Yeah, poor Travis. He was tripped out. Yeah, I think he made me take my cell phone out of my pocket and all kinds of stuff. And
well, Travis is legit, man. He's a buddy of mine, and he's not going to say something happened if it didn't.
Oh no, he won't. It totally looks like I'm drinking a tall beer here, but Arizona sweet tea, guys.
Nice.
It's like, hey, it's noon,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to hear this part. All right, I'm going to fast forward a bit. So listen. All right, so I want to talk about this real quick. So there's no doubt that I just heard something. There was definitely like a clicking sound, just like you said. So that's something that you can like just do anytime, man. Like really?
Yeah. It's like moving a finger, blinking an eye, anything. What it feels like is like a muscle in the middle of my mind, and I just tense it. And once I do that, then I can interact with various array of different sounds, and almost like meditation. You just kind of go deeper into it and let everything else around you go. You know what I mean? And yeah, you're really going to like the once we open this case, you're going to like the Nashville recording studio, because they actually pulled up their diagnostics, got a hold of my investigator, and they said, look, we're having trouble with our equipment. Then they ran the diagnostics and everything was fine. It said it was coming from the soundproof room where I was sitting there with that thing strapped to my head. And then the lines start going across the screen, and he's like, look at the level of control this guy has, So they were really freaked out, but I love their reaction to it. But also the fact that we can use some, really expensive, awesome equipment to document that kind of thing. So I was happy about that, because in the beginning I was so embarrassed and I didn't want to show anybody. My investigator sent someone from MUFON in Arkansas to come over and experience it. So she came over, turned on the camera, and my investigator instructed her and said, I want you to get your take on what this is. So I grabbed a stethoscope, which is really cool. It amplifies the sound, all that stuff. But she wanted to feel the energy too. So I put my forehead on her forehead so you can feel that energy coming across. And, scientists right now, they want to call it spooky action at a distance or quantum entanglement. But I think looking at the microtubules in the brain, well, Oh, don't get me started. Let's just say non-local. Non-local. We'll go with that. And but I put my forehead on her forehead, and I noticed the skepticality on her face, and it really made me feel really uncomfortable. I just felt like, what if she doesn't hear this? What if she doesn't pick up anything? So now I know the hertz range, but back then I didn't know it. I hit her with 3,000 hertz. This woman tried to stand up to get away, and she was falling, so I had to catch her. Her face swelled up, her eyeball swelled shut. She was in bad shape. So the next day, my investigator calls me, and he is this only time he's ever been really mad at me. What the hell did you do to her? And I was like, I just showed her, and he was like, how, don't do it that loud to people anymore. Don't do it that strongly. Obviously it's, has side effects. So now I try to stay around, like, I don't know, a comfortable 741 hertz,
It's interesting how you have the ability to change the frequency of the sound that you're creating. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it is, if you think about it, because I want to hear it outside of my own brain. If you think about, ears are the thing that picks up sound. What is it that's picking up sound on the inside of your brain? The electrical receptors that pick up sound in the first place. So if you think about it long enough, you get really confused, and I don't know, start day drinking or something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. That's really crazy. So what do you think you have these powers for? So to me, like, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking in the world of evolution. So we evolved with 10 fingers and 10 toes because they do stuff. You know what I mean? So, like, what is it that this can do for you? Why is it there, and what purpose does it serve?
Yeah, I mean, I think along the lines that you do. I mean, I think it's evolution. Maybe that for some reason I have a mutation in my ALX4, which
what's the ALX4? You just lost me.
Oh, sorry. That's a part of your DNA. And
okay.
That's the part of DNA that makes your human construct, per se, a skull without two holes in them. Underneath these two holes, I have a slab of muscle protecting my brain, and other people don't have that either. And these holes are in perfect symmetry. They're the same size, depth, everything. So what that does for me is it speeds up water flow and blood flow around my brain. It eases my blood pressure. In turn, it's good for my immune system. There's a whole list of things that benefit me medically, instead of being some deformed person that, oops, genetically something screwed up. And then you have the MLX2. The MLX2 has everything in there. The cleft lip, it has club foot, it has everything imaginable when it comes to malformations. The ALX4 never has that because it's the basic construct. It's like the piece of paper before you start putting letters down. The paper is never supposed to be a triangle or a circle. It's always supposed to be that piece of paper. So for my DNA to have a mutation where mutations don't happen, I find kind of odd, and I want to dig into that more, especially with major universities, to see what they can find. I think that's going to be interesting with random nucleotide polymorphisms. And sorry, people, my investigator tells me all the time, slow down and third grade it.
Yes, because I'm barely fourth grade.
Yeah, well, I went from a dumb redneck in Hot Springs, Arkansas, to a very high IQ in a short period of time, and it happened to me after that. And it makes sense. I mean, if you have more, neural connections that happen to you almost overnight, you eventually have to get used to that, and that was really difficult for me. But I consumed libraries. My investigator told me one time, he said, "Eric, this is very important." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I need you to learn Spanish in a week, And I said, "Okay, are we going to Peru?" He's like, "I'm not telling you yet." And I'm telling on him right now. I mean, he'll probably laugh at me for this, but it's true. So I learned as much Castellano language as I could in a week's time. Called them up thinking we're going to go to Peru on a maybe an investigation or something like that. And, I told him all kinds of things in Spanish and all that stuff. And he goes, I just wanted to see if you can do it. So I was like, you jerk, I could have, but yeah, it was very difficult until things leveled off and I got used to that. Imagine tomorrow morning you waking up with 20 more IQ points. A lot of people would think, hey, that's cool, but it's actually a lot of suffering. Because you see so many things in a different way. I mean, you're almost not yourself, until you level off and pan off and stop trying to produce cortisol for your brain so it will slow down.
So I want to ask something that just sends me right down the rabbit hole. So I've obviously been doing this stuff a long time, and I've heard theories or just thoughts and stories out there in the world that we as human beings were created by something else, by like possibly an alien, like in this alien thing keeps messing with our DNA and trying to improve us. Like we're just like this giant experiment. And what you're saying really goes down that line that these aliens took you on board, changed your DNA, gave you essentially gifts that I don't have. And are you a little bit more advanced than I am?
Oh, no, I think I'm worse off, man. I think too much. I overthink everything. No, I mean, God, no. I think we're both a general expression of the one thing. What is it called? The 10,000 things, one suchness. That you can take out of the Vedic text. But no, I mean,
So you don't believe in that concept. You don't believe in the thought that aliens are changing our DNA to make us something else.
Yeah, that's on the table for me. It's definitely one of the possibilities that's on the table. I mean, if you can look at human DNA and the giant 65 leaps they've taken over the course of our so-called evolution, that's too much at once. Who put those there? Now, of course, you also see these fiery red balls that I've seen in the Bible, in other religions. So that gets confusing, is this a godly thing or an angel thing? I mean, you can't just jump in the bin with it. You've really got to take your time and not make any conclusions until you have definitive proof. But I have had to dive into 4,200 man-made religions just to find it everywhere. So is it a correlation? Is it one or the other? People like to pick. They have fun with it. But you have to realize anything outside of this planet or that originated from outside of this planet, whether we call it God or not, it's still alien. It's not from here. So God is an alien. He's not from Earth. He created Earth.
Right.
The guy that created this computer doesn't live inside the computer. But that's not where you're going to find him. So,
right.
Yeah, it's confusing, but at the same time, I just like the truth to kind of drip down a little bit at a time.
Right. So do you know where they're from? You were just talking about like they're not from here. Do you have any idea where they are from? Because like one of the coolest stories to me on the planet is the Betty and Barney Hill abduction story. I think that is for me like the Patterson Gimlin film. Like it's kind of to me the pinnacle of alien research, and I think their stories are legit because they have things that say that the story about them seeing the aircraft flying close to the mountains. Well, Pease Air Force Base said that they had an aircraft flying exactly the way they said it was at the same exact time. So make a long story short, man, like did you have, I guess what I want to know is do you have any of the same experiences that they had? Because when they went on the ship, right, they remember a leader, and this leader kind of gave them, some information or whatever, and they told them where they were from, Zeta Reticuli. So you don't have that, do you? You don't have that interaction where they try to give you information and tell you where they're from and maybe how to contact them again. Since you didn't have that, do you think what you have as powers is that, you know what I mean? Do you have the ability to summon them now?
Uh, um, Gosh, with that CE5 stuff and all those things going on out there,
What is CE5? Everybody's been telling me about this thing.
it's where Stephen Greer came up with it, where you sit and meditate and interact with the craft in your mind, and then they come down and everybody's happy.
Do you think it's real? Do you think that is real?
Well, I know that connection's real. I do, but I don't think everyone has that ability, because not everyone has this AKA antenna that Stanford has discovered. I believe that is the part of the brain that interacts, outside of itself, non-locality. Harvard's agreeing with me on that as well. That if you look at it under MRI, what you're going to see is like a spread out malignant like tree root, and it's going to be extra white and it's going to be extra bright, where you can see it go off to the caudate putamen and the basal ganglia area of the brain. And this is motor function, and we believe that's where empathy comes from, psychic ability. Something is literally leaving and coming back with information, and that's just hard for academics to talk about, but this is what we're finding. And at first we thought it was white dead brain matter because it showed up really white, on the MRI scans, but come to find out it's highly active. That's why it's white. So yeah, I mean, if you have that antenna, a lot of people think these implants are GPS tracking devices, but these devices are more complex than just a GPS. I think we are the GPS device. Now, where, I don't agree with Stephen Greer 100%. I don't think just anybody can, make that kind of contact at a distance. But he seems to think so. So,
all right. So you have this ability, you have this antenna or whatever. So does again, I'm going to go back to, can you summon these things? Because you're telling me that you have this antenna and this ability.
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to communicate with them in some way?
I believe I have a few times. Yes. And that's, it's really tough. What if 2 times out of 2, it was a coincidence and I haven't done enough looking into? But I sure as don't want to say yes and get thrown into a black van and see if maybe the Pentagon can make me do it, But,
yeah. Man, I've been listening to MK Ultra a lot, that whole thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, man, but it's a crazy experiment where they use like LSD to like try to create, I don't know, warriors, if you will, like really badass soldiers. But anything could happen, man. The government's liable to scoop you up and put you on top of a tower somewhere and try to use you as like a UFO beacon.
Yeah, they're a pain in the butt. They really are. What you see in the movies, that's not how it really happens. They were tracking at the Pentagon. They were tracking these objects to my area, watching them come and go. So they sent out helicopters. They sent out F-18s to intercept. And then they sent out Lieutenant Colonel Dallas C. Wood of the United States Pentagon. Holy crap, I just said his name. So now, whoops.
Oh.
Can we redo this live session, please?
Too late.
Yeah. Oh, darn. Yeah, I'm just that kind of jerk. But yeah, he eventually passed away in 2015. But he was at Lakeshore Condos, right down the street from where I lived, and he was writing down a ledger of everything that me and the kids did. He took pictures. It looked like he was building a really big report for whoever he worked for. So my neighbor that cleans out his room on a daily basis saw this action and called me. And she said, "Eric, this man's stalking you, And I said, "Go to the office, get the man's name." She got his name, and I gave it to my investigator. And my investigator picked 5 guys with the same name, one of which was the real guy. And she picked him out of a lineup. She said, "That's the guy that's renting this room that is stalking you and your kids." So by knowing his name, I was able to trace that back. I was able to find out about ATIP, OSAP, the phenomenology desk, all these things that, well, crap, probably hasn't even gone public yet. I know ATIP and OSAP has. Phenomenology desk, I think, might be public. I'm not sure yet, but these guys, it's all about UFOs and stuff like that. These guys in the CIA. and they call it the phenomenology desk. But look, guys, it's the 5th floor of the Pentagon. It's a little bigger than a desk.
Right.
You know, you got to know how counterintelligence really works. Is we'll call it a desk, but it's a lot bigger than that. You know, to give you the wrong impression. But yeah, I was able to find out a lot of stuff, and I did my first public talk in Maine, 2014. Nobody had a problem with me talking about UFOs, which is amazing. But I got pulled to the side by so many people. They're going, "It's not the Pentagon, it's Area 51." And I'm like, you really think I got on stage behind a podium in front of that many people if I didn't know what the hell I was talking about? You know,
Right.
I mean, you know, but yeah, 2017 it came 17, I believe. I think so. When you know, ATIP went forward, Tom DeLonge, that whole thing. Interestingly enough, the whole working model was actually taken from a guy named Joseph Firmage, who had INTERNASA, and that was the International Academy of Arts and Science. Does that name kind of ring a bell a little bit?
A little bit.
International. Yeah, yeah. Let's get those thinkers thinking out there. But yeah, that Tom DeLonge actually thinks it, or he thought back then that it was his idea. But I've heard word that he knows the truth now, that this has been you know, being put together for a long period of time.
So, can you tell me, are you still having experiences? Like, have they stopped, or are you like, yeah, are you still having stuff happen?
Yeah. It doesn't matter where I move. It doesn't matter where I go. The last experience was a couple weeks ago. What I thought I was having a dream, and you know, it's like being a bedwetter or something. It's so embarrassing. You know, everybody gets to live this normal life, you know, and then there's Eric. You know, it's like it's not right. But I thought I was having a dream that they called me outside, and in real life, when I do get that call, I stand up and I immediately go outside. My kids even know, grab the cameras, they're here, you know. But I woke up and I walk into this room where I'm at right here because this is my investigator's office. And the back of my computer is facing the back of his computer, you know, so we can converse, work on cases together and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, you know, Bear, I had this dream and I got called outside and I actually filmed it in my dream. And he's like busy as hell, you know, and he's like, check your phone. And I was like, no. It was a dream. And he's like, Eric, check your phone. You know, this guy's been doing it for over 40 years. He might have a little insight, you know.
Yeah.
So I pulled up my phone so he'll shut up. And there it was. It wasn't a dream. But all I remember was going outside, filming it for like a minute, and then that's it. I woke up in my bed. The interesting thing about that video that I took was you can see the blue light of the electromagnetic field shimmering on the ground right in front of me. So there was manipulation going on. How much, I don't know. I have no idea. But to take the sciences that I've learned and to actually see it in action with these UFOs brings me closer to understand that I'm most likely on the right road when it comes to all the science and how it works. Not to mention that I spend literally all of my time working with other people like me. Like, God, I got a Zoom meeting tonight with about 50 different experiencers, most of which have never even spoken before.
Yeah. Is this going to be public? Can people watch this?
Well, I try to keep them as private as I can. Researchers that I trust, I'll have come in on there and stuff like that. But these people are like wild animals. They're very timid. They don't want to be called crazy in public. They don't want to be ostracized by their family, loss of jobs. Lord knows I've had a lot of trouble with work. You know, I'll get hired and then my boss will Google me and then I'm not hired anymore. You know, and it's just, you know, somebody even put out on Google that I was the abductee counselor, you know, thanks to whoever that was. You know, now I have more of a reputation. And that sucks. You know, it'd be one thing if I was out there trying to make a living, but I'm in a war zone. I'm helping people. I'm stopping people from killing themselves. Literally on number 234 when it comes to suicide prevention, and I've worked with thousands, and it's daunting. It's crazy, you know. And you would think maybe it was some schizophrenics here and there that I'm working with. Man, I'm working with doctors. I'm working with lawyers. I'm working with psychiatrists. These are reputable people. They're intelligent people, and they go through the same process I've gone through. I don't want to believe it. It can't be real. And taking all those tiny steps into some sort of recovery when it comes to, I have to accept this into my reality, and I don't want to.
Right. So I'm going to take one question, and then I'm going to get where people can contact you if they need help, because I think that's really important. Because I know a lot of experiencers that deal with some rough stuff, man. So like, I would love for people to be able to contact you, because I think you're articulate, and I think you're intelligent. I think you're also an experiencer, and I think you can relate and, like you said, help people. But Ken has this question. Can you see that?
Do you have anything that might be considered a precursor to when they come? Oh, yeah. I'll get this high atmospheric type of feeling. It's hard to explain. I will immediately get overtired, and sometimes, not all of the time, I'll definitely have this onset of unknown anxiety where I'll become anxious and not even know about it until a few minutes later. Like, oh, wait, what is this? And it's time for me to go to bed. And it doesn't even matter what time of day it is. It's just like almost narcoleptic, And for me, that's those feelings. Unless I get, my brain go off without me trying to do it. That's automatic. Something's going on.
How long does that affect you? Like when this happens, is it something that sticks around for days, minutes, weeks? Like how long?
There is a sort of feeling that you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. You would really miss it if you weren't seriously paying attention. It's so subtle. And that feeling kind of sticks around for maybe 3 days at a time, or a week at a time, or even just one day. But you just know. It's really hard to explain. I think he would even, appreciate hearing that, because it's just so subtle. And if you're not used to having that feeling, you wouldn't know it was there at all. But
you wouldn't understand it. So it's almost like hearing a language that you don't understand. But once you understand that language, you know what's going on.
Yeah. Yep. And you do. I mean, sometimes you get so caught up in your day that you barely notice, or notice at all. But that night you'll know.
Wow. That's really cool. All right. So I try to usually stay an hour. We're going to be about 15, 20 minutes over, but that's totally okay, man. I could literally sit here and talk to you all night about this. It's so cool. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on here and do this for me. But again, I think it's really important that we get out there, how people can contact you. How can they do that?
Really the only way at this point, I'm kind of off grid right now. I can't get any signal with my phone, is Facebook. And that's, just Eric Mitchell. You'll see my ugly mug there, and you'll also see vibrations and frequencies up behind my head. That actually came out of my brain in a recording studio. So if people think, well, that's just sound waves, that's really nice. No, that was an actual signal that came from the sky and was recorded. So it's pretty cool stuff. And they can get a hold of me through there. I know it's tough to reach out. It's difficult. And I'm very much used to working with people like myself. So I can definitely make it easy for you.
Nice. Well, awesome, man. Well, again, thank you, Eric. And, I'd like to have you back on, and I'd like to go into a lot of your hypnosis that you went through, because I think that is really fascinating. And, again, that'll take us another hour. So definitely want to do this again with you. And thanks, man. And I hope you have a good lockdown.
so good, my friend. Thanks for having me on. And, hey, maybe this encounter will cause someone's life to get better, to know that they're not the only person out there that has to deal with it. And that's all I do these days. You take care, my friend.
All right, you too, Eric. And everybody out there, I will be back as soon as I can. More cool podcasts will definitely be on the way. So till then, take care of yourselves, and later.